Welcome to today's Clean Air webinar, Navigating Indoor-Outdoor Air Quality Amid Wildfire Smoke. I cannot think of a more timely day to have this conversation. Really looking forward to hearing the expertise of our guests here today. Jamie Happy, Health Promotion Coordinator from Alberta Lung Association, Pat Goegan from Health Canada's Indoor Air Contaminants Assessment Section, joined by his colleague Opal Vuzi, also from Health Canada, as well as Roberta McGillivray, co-owner and executive director of BTE Indoor Air Quality Solutions. My name is Julie Cusick, and I am your host for Alberta Capital Airshed's Clean Air webinar series. So, I just have to reflect on Friday night. Our family drove out of town to a nice dark area to see the beautiful Aurora Borealis. And when we woke up Saturday morning, the air was thick with smoke. So really looking forward to the conversation today. Alberta Capital Airshed is a not-for-profit, multi-stakeholder organization. Membership and board leadership includes representation from educational institutions, municipalities, government, industry, NGOs, and interested citizens. The air quality data ACA collects is reported to the public and is used to calculate local air quality health index, also known as the AQHI. And as one of 10 airsheds in the province, Alberta Capital Airshed also provides outreach and educational initiatives, such as the Clean Air webinar series, to increase air quality awareness and address local issues. Thank you for being here today. I'd also like to acknowledge that Alberta Capital Airshed is on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of many First Nations, including the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux. We acknowledge that this territory is home to the Métis Nation of Alberta. We acknowledge our part in treaty by being thoughtful about the air we breathe and how we can work to ensure it is healthy and life-giving for our earth, the current generation, and for many generations to come. I invite you to take a moment to consider the land and air from which you join us today. So now a little bit about how this webinar will work. The webinar will be a 60-minute presentation or production. Each panelist will do a short presentation, and then we will open up the floor to your questions. Jamie Happy will provide an overview of how poor air quality affects the human body. The presentation will discuss how to use tools like the AQHI and DIY air purifiers to plan your day. Pat Goegan will present an overview of indoor air quality guidance for cleaner air spaces in Canada. With an increased focus on finding refuge from wildfire smoke, Pat's presentation will highlight considerations for operating community-based cleaner air spaces and advice on how to do it right. If you're a municipal councillor or environmental employee of a municipality or organization with a large space available to you, you don't want to miss this presentation. When it's smoky outside, indoor air quality can deteriorate quickly, like perhaps some of us experienced this past weekend. Roberta McGillivray will show us some indoor air quality data from sample buildings around Alberta during last summer's wildfire season. I also understand we may get a sneak peek into what things are looking like this season already. She'll take us into key strategies and practical measures to improve air quality inside buildings when it's smoky outside. So with that quick teaser, if you're on this call, maybe you've already got some questions formulating. That's excellent. And we want to see lots of your questions come through for a robust Q&A session after the presentations. You can register your questions using the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. You'll also see there's a comment box. Yes, comments are welcome as well. This is your chat area to enhance your webinar experience. If you have some information that you'd like to share with other folks on the call, you're welcome to share that in the chat. So with that, on to our first presentation. Jamie Happy holds a Bachelor of Science degree and is the Health Promotions Coordinator for Alberta Lung Association. Her role advances lung health research and policy, education for the public, and assists patients on their healthcare journey through multiple support systems. Welcome, Jamie.
Thanks, Julie, and thank you, Alberta Capital Airshed, for the opportunity to speak this morning. So, as she mentioned, I will be talking about the impact of the wildfire season on our health and some tools for protecting ourselves. As we are all aware, we are experiencing a longer, more severe, and earlier wildfire season, and that's forecast to become the norm. So, without further ado, Russ, can you go to the first slide? Thank you. So a little bit of background. Alberta Lung is a provincial health nonprofit. So we serve the public as well as the 1 in 5 Albertans directly affected by over 40 distinct lung diseases and their families. And at particular risk for those lung disease patients is wildfire smoke. So a smoke hour is a way to track the severity of the wildfire season and how it's affecting a particular area. 2023 was a record breaking year for wildfires globally. So 5% of Canada's forests burned and over 6% of Alberta's forests burned, or the size of Vancouver Island. And we broke records with the number of smoke hours and air quality events, which are situations like a wildfire that can cause bad air quality across a province from Fort McMurray all the way to Lethbridge. For example, Calgary had over 20 times its average number of smoke hours. And with the amount of air quality events and smoke hours expected to rise, we want to make sure that we're prepared for this. Next slide, please. All right, so the impact of wildfire smoke, it can impact us indoors and outdoors. It's made up of a really complex combination of chemicals like volatile organic compounds, ozone, carcinogens from burned wood, plastic, and building material if it's near residential areas. So very fine particles in the air called PM2.5, which is less than 2.5 micrometers or over 30 times smaller than a strand of hair, are of special concern. They're so small that they get deep into our respiratory tract, and that's why the air quality can be bad even when it looks clear outside. Rates of ER visits for asthma attacks, COPD complications, and difficulty breathing skyrocket during prolonged poor air quality. And the reason why we want to be careful about PM2.5 is it can decrease lung function. It increases our risk of asthma attacks, irregular heartbeats, heart attacks, and it can exacerbate pre-existing health conditions. Next slide, please. Short term, the impact of poor air quality can be irritated eyes, headaches, coughs, and sore throats, even if you don't have a lung disease. I myself don't have a lung disease, but I definitely experienced irritated eyes and a sore throat last year during the prolonged air quality events. Long term, it can lower your immunity. It'll decrease your lung function overall. You have an increased rate of lung disease and heart disease risk, and an increased risk of complications like low birth weight for pregnant women. So, with that, we want to say if you are experiencing symptoms, seek medical attention. If you're having difficulty breathing, seek medical care immediately. Next slide, please. So, there are tools that can help you take precautions and be prepared. The Air Quality Health Index, which my fellow presenters will go into more detail about, measures common air pollutants like PM2.5 and ozone and nitrogen oxide. And there's also a tool called firesmoke.ca, which forecasts smoke patterns to plan your day. So be prepared for possibly canceling outdoor events during poor air quality. Close your windows and doors. If you have an air conditioner, close the fresh air intake so it doesn't bring smoky air inside. When driving, close your windows and vents. Exercise indoors. Limit your exposure outdoors. If you have to be outdoors, keep it short. Wear a mask, and it has to be a well-fitted respirator type mask. So a certified N95 or equivalent respirator, or a mask that is well-fitting so it doesn't allow smoke to pass through small openings between the mask and the face. That'll help reduce your exposure to fine particles in the smoke. If someone in your house or you yourself have a lung disease, change your clothes when you're coming from the outdoors to the indoors to avoid spreading particles that can be a lung irritant inside the home. And that little image at the bottom is just an example of firesmoke.ca's forecasting. Next slide, please. All right, so other precautions you can take is stay hydrated to keep your mouth and nose moist. That helps your body help flush out irritants like that smoke. Develop a plan B when poor air quality cancels or limits your outdoor activities. If you can't play soccer outside, head to the rec center for an indoor swim. Have a box of games, crafts, etc. just ready, just in case you do have to change your plans. So poor air quality can also affect our pets and livestock as well. So animals, especially flat-faced cats and dogs, they can struggle just like us. Instead of maybe taking the dog for a walk outside, go to an indoor pet-friendly store or play area. And we do recommend that festivals, outdoor markets, sporting events have a plan in place to move indoors if air quality conditions worsen as well. And municipalities can open buildings to have the public take breaks as well. So Patrick from Health Canada can talk a bit more about that. Next slide, please. This is an example of the AQHI and a planning tool that Alberta Lung uses. So as you can see, the AQHI is on your first column to the left, and you'll have a rating of 1.1 to 3, 4 to 6, all the way to over 10, which is very high. And you use that to determine what your best plan of action is, depending on what population you are. So at risk, so the young, the elderly, pregnant, pre-existing health conditions, especially lung disease or heart disease, they have a much higher risk of experiencing exacerbations and long-term side effects from those exacerbations. The general public tends to be a little bit less susceptible. We do have also guidelines for schools and daycares as well as outdoor workers. Generally, if it's 1 to 3, it's ideal. You can go about as usual. You don't need to take any precautions. If it's moderate and you are working outdoors, you're a school or daycare, or you're an at-risk member of the population, we just say consider reducing or shortening strenuous activity outdoors, limit your time outdoors, and wear a mask. When it's over 10, that's very high. That's a risk for everybody. So we would say avoid or limit time outdoors, reschedule outdoor activities, wear a mask when you're outdoors. If you have to work outside, stay hydrated, take frequent indoor breaks, limit your exposure as much as possible, and consider indoor work for at risk staff. Next slide, please. One thing you can do is have an air purifier to help making sure your indoor air is just as good as your outdoor air, especially during poor air quality events. You want to make sure you're not bringing in that smoke and poor air into your home. Air purifiers don't have to be expensive or complicated. We do have a budget-friendly option that meets Health Canada recommendations. And we have two different options here, depending on cost and accessibility. The estimated cost is under $150, but it does depend on which one you take. The most effective model is called a Corsi Rosenthal, which again, Patrick can discuss a bit further. And that would be a furnace filter, which is essentially taped to a box fan with cardboard. And a University of Calgary, California, study showed that this model performs similarly to store-bought residential air cleaners and costs almost 3 times less. So with that, we want to be mindful of accessibility and equity. So we do give people the option of when we do these workshops is instead of using 4 filters, you can use one single filter. It won't be as effective, but it's still helping you clean your air. Next slide, please. So this is just a quick little guideline on how to build a Corsi Rosenthal box, which is that 4 filter, 1 box fan model. There's also a video by the Pacific Institute on Pathogens, Pandemics, and Society that shows how to build it. I won't go into too much detail here, but it's quite simple. It takes about 10 minutes to build. And we just recommend that you check that filter every so often to make sure that it's still clean, it doesn't need to be replaced, or it's not damaged. For more information on how to build a Corsi Rosenthal box, you can check the Health Canada site. You can also check Alberta Lung, as well as edgecollective.io. Next slide, please. So that's my presentation. Thank you all for listening, and I will invite Patrick to present.
So thank you very much, Jamie, for that great overview of how people can get the information they need to make the choices that may be best for them, as well as, a bit of that DIY piece and how to protect yourself on a budget. So next, I would like to welcome Pat Goegan. Pat is a senior scientist and a member of the Indoor Air Contaminants Assessment Section of Health Canada. He has over 30 years of experience working in the field of air quality, both in the areas of experimental research and in the development of guidance for improving indoor air quality in residential and public spaces in Canada. Patrick was the lead author on Health Canada's guidance for cleaner airspaces during wildfire events. So with that, welcome, Pat. Really looking forward to your presentation today.
Well, thanks for the introduction, Julian. Thank you for the presentation, Jamie. As mentioned, I work for Health Canada, and I work as part of the Indoor Air Contaminants Assessment Section. And we study indoor air pollution, and we develop guidance for use by Canadians to protect their health. So I'd like to follow Jamie's excellent talk with an overview of our guidance that we develop for use by jurisdictions that are interested in developing their own cleaner airspaces for use during wildfire smoke events. Okay, so our next slide. Please. Thank you. Wildfires and the smoke they produce are of increasing concern in Canada. Forest fire smoke contains a variety of air pollutants, which can vary depending on what's burned. Wildfire and grassland burning will produce different pollutants than fires that consume buildings and vehicles. But regardless of the source, all wildfire smoke contains pollutants that are associated with an increase in adverse health effects and includes contaminants such as particulate material, as we've heard about, such as PM 2.5 and PM 10. PM 2.5 referring to the fact that the particles are smaller than 2.5 microns, and PM 10 slightly larger, they're smaller than 10 microns. And gases such as nitrogen dioxide, carbon monoxide, volatile organic compounds, and ozone. Next slide, please. So fine particles represent the main health risk from wildfire smoke, and it refers to tiny particles in the air which can be inhaled and deposited in the lungs. PM 2.5, as I mentioned, refers to particulate matter that's smaller than 2.5 microns, and due to their small size, they have the potential to travel deep into the lungs. Now, particles are a complex mixture of solid material, like carbon or minerals, and chemicals that can be on the surface of the particles, or in some cases, the particle can consist entirely of soluble material, which will completely dissolve once they're deposited on the surface of your lungs, and then can end up in your bloodstream. Next slide, please. So to address this, Health Canada has developed guidance for identifying, equipping, and operating cleaner airspaces in Canada. Now, in the next 3 slides, I will provide a quick overview of our guidance, which will consider the building itself, the operation of the ventilation system, and what pollutants are important to be aware of when operating a cleaner airspace. When selecting or designing a building to be used as a community-based cleaner air space, there's several characteristics to be considered. First, it will need to be large enough to serve the community in which it's located. For some, this may be the library, a recreation center, shopping mall, or a school. Depending on the community, some may be larger and some may be smaller. The building itself should be fitted with a heating, ventilating, or air conditioning, or HVAC system that's capable of filtering the incoming air, controlling the temperature, humidity, and air exchange rate. The doors and windows should be well sealed to prevent pollutants from infiltrating into the building. Emergency power is important to ensure the continuous operation of the facility. And to support and manage the operation of the building, it's important that a facility manager is identified who's familiar with the building and the HVAC system. It's important for the facility manager to have the tools for understanding the smoke conditions outside, using information provided by the Air Quality Health Index forecast, as we heard, Infosmog forecast for Quebec, as well as active weather warnings, air quality advisories, and wildfire smoke maps. Additionally, a facility manager needs to be able to interpret the monitoring systems in the building in order to properly operate the HVAC system. Next slide. Now, as I mentioned, having a building with a well-sealed windows and doors is important for keeping pollutants outside. However, in order to ventilate the building and control the temperature and humidity, outside air must be drawn into the building. And therefore, the operation of the HVAC system and its ability to keep pollutants outside is important, especially in the case of particulate matter. So to prevent infiltration of particles, the HVAC system should be equipped with the highest efficiency filters possible. Filters are certified using the minimum efficiency reporting value, or MERV, which is a scale that goes from 1 to 16 and provides an indication of what the filter is capable of capturing. For removal of fine particulate matter, a MERV rating of 13 or higher is recommended. The HVAC system should have the ability to switch between recirculation and outdoor air intake modes. This allows the operator the option to switch to fresh outdoor air when smoke levels are low and to use recirculation when outdoor levels are high. Knowing how well a cleaner airspace is working to keep indoor particulates low requires measurement. The results from commercially available PM 2.5 monitors can allow measurement and comparison of indoor and outdoor particulate levels to determine how effective the filtration system is, with the goal of having lower PM levels indoors as compared to outdoors. These monitors can also provide an indication of whether the HVAC filters require changing if indoor levels are seen to be increasing over time. Certified carbon monoxide alarms should be installed throughout the facility and monitored routinely. Newer models of carbon monoxide alarms have a digital display that provides a real-time display of measured values. Now, in addition to the building's HVAC system, additional air quality equipment may be considered. Permanent ceiling or wall-mounted air cleaning devices may be considered and installed, or appropriately sized portable air filtration equipment might be chosen for use. Air filtration equipment are available with high efficiency particulate air, or HEPA filters, which are very effective at capturing very small particles. It is important for facilities to have an understanding of where these units will be located to ensure that they're appropriately sized for the rooms that they will be located. Now, if you don't have access to a ventilation system or a commercially available portable air cleaner, you may plan to use a do-it-yourself air cleaner, as we've heard about. There's some evidence that DIY air cleaners can be an effective option in short-term emergency situations, but it's important to understand the limitations and safety risks associated with DIY air cleaners, which include ensuring that you use a clean, newer, undamaged, certified box filter fan with a safety fuse. Keep the fan away from the walls, furniture, and curtains. Change the filters regularly during wildfire smoke events, as clogged filters may cause the fan to overheat. And never leave the fan unattended while in use or while you're sleeping. Now, currently, Health Canada does not make recommendations beyond HEPA filtration, as several different cleaning technologies exist on the market, but standard testing methodologies are not available to compare and contrast these technologies. Additionally, some air cleaners have the unintended side effect of producing ozone, which is a health hazard, and so it's important that air cleaning technologies are carefully selected. And the last point, odor removing filters may be considered as well if the HVAC system is capable of handling additional filters, while effectiveness of these kind of filters can vary. My last slide. So when in operation, the following indoor conditions should be met in a cleaner airspace. As I mentioned, particulate matter is an important component of wildfire smoke, and Health Canada recognizes that there's no threshold for health effects, or in other words, it's harmful at any exposure level. So the aim is to reduce the levels to as low as possible, with the goal of maintaining indoor levels that are lower than outdoors. Health Canada recommends that carbon monoxide levels should be kept below 10 ppm. Carbon dioxide levels should be kept below 1,000 ppm. And temperatures should be kept below 26, and relative humidity should be kept between 30 and 50%. So this was a quick overview of our guidance, and I encourage you to check out the full document listed at the address below. I understand it's a bit of a mouthful, but hopefully with you can screen capture it, or a copy of the webinar afterwards will allow you to get access to this link. And if you have any questions or comments in the future, please feel free to contact me at my email address. And that's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that presentation, Pat. I've got a load of questions lined up for our Q&A portion, so looking forward to that discussion. Welcome, Roberta, for our final presentation of today. Just before we head into your presentation, I wanted to let everybody on the call know that in Edmonton on June 5th, starting at 10 p.m., we invite you to take a look at the high-level bridge. It will be lit up in AQHI colors in celebration of Clean Air Day. And we'd love for you to go take some time, take a photo, and take us on social media to help raise awareness for Clean Air Day. So with that, on to Roberta's presentation. Roberta is the co-owner and executive director of BGE Indoor Air Quality Solutions. She's a passionate clean air champion and recognized filtration and indoor air quality industry leader. She's been with BGE for close to 25 years, working with her team of now 275 team members to safely build and maintain clean, healthy indoor air environments. She is the past president of the National Air Filtration Association and also sits on NAFA and ASHRAE technical committees that develop clean air best practices and standards across North America. So with that, Roberta, looking forward to hearing your expertise on how we can make our indoor air a little less smoky than what we're seeing outdoors. Over to you.
Thank you, Julie, and thank you for the opportunity to be part of this discussion today. I think Jamie and Patrick have shared a lot of information. Some of it I'm going to touch on, so I may gloss over a few things that they've already talked about, but it's worth repeating for sure. So just bear with me because I am driving my PowerPoint today, so I just want to get this teed up. So yeah, today I'm going to show some real life examples, and actually we were able to get a real life example from Saturday as the smoke blew into Edmonton. So the two examples are going to be one of a residential home in Edmonton, and the other is going to be a commercial building in downtown Calgary. And then I'm going to briefly go through some additional information of what you can do. You know, hopefully you would have been able to do this ahead of time before wildfire activity happened, of how you can get your systems in place, choose the right filtration, and put a plan in place to really improve indoor air quality when the outdoor air quality is not so great. So we'll jump into our first example, which is an example of, it's actually our home in Edmonton. And so we have a side-by-side comparison that on a clear day on May 9th at 9 a.m., we went to the Alberta Air Quality website and the AQHI was a 2. And with our indoor air quality monitor, we were able to measure that at that day, we had about just negligible PM 2.5 in the home. And on the air quality website, outdoor PM 2.5 was 1.5. And now switch to the smoky day that we had on May 11th, where the AQHI was at a 10. And at the time that we took the reading for this slide, it was outdoor PM 2.5 was 350 and indoor PM was 75, which is still pretty high, but let's show you what we learned. So here's the example of our residential home. It was built in 1966. We did a big renovation in 2017 to really tighten the building envelope, improve the insulation, upgraded the windows, upgraded the doors, and made sure everything sealed well. We upgraded to a high efficiency furnace with central air conditioning. It has a MERV 13 pleated filter with a 5-inch depth. And we also have 2-room air purifiers that include a pre-filter, activated carbon, and HEPA filter. So first thing in the morning, this top line here is the from the air quality website sharing the outdoor PM 2.5, and the bottom reddish line is our indoor PM 2.5. So at 7 a.m., smoke moved into Edmonton, and you can see the PM 2.5 was at about 350. In our home, the indoor PM 2.5 was 75, and we could definitely smell the smoke and didn't feel all that great. Our daughter actually thought she had come down with a cold. You can see the spikes in our data, and this is, with homes, it's hard to keep a positive pressure if your systems aren't running continuously, and it is an older home. So you can see where the doors were opening, closed, and shut. And then we realized we had an open window. So we closed all our windows. We made sure that our system was set to continuous so that it was filtering continually through the MERV 13 filter, and we turned on our 2-room air purifiers. And what you can see with this green dotted line is that as those measures were in place, that it continued to remove PM 2.5 out of the home. Now, you're probably wondering, well, what about this huge spike at about 6:30? Well, we thought we'd just take our IAQ monitor outside for a couple hours just to show what it was like outside. So that's the big jump. We had it sit on our deck and measure PM 2.5 outside. And then overnight, we brought the monitor back inside, and you can see, as we headed for bed and no more windows and doors were going to be opening, that we were able to get our home to healthy PM 2.5 levels, even though outside it was still above 300 for outdoor PM 2.5. Here's an example of a commercial building, and this is a comparison of May 4th, so last week, to last September, which was just after Labor Day. If you all remember, I know I have a few friends that say, if you guys have smoky days like that, I'm not coming back to visit Edmonton. So here on this clear day, it was an AQHI of 2. Outdoor PM 2.5 was 6.5, and indoor was again negligible. And on that smoky day, AQHI was 9, the outdoor was 116, and the indoor in the commercial building was 10. And so this commercial building has a MERV 15 system, so higher than the MERV 13, with secondary pocket filters. They have a program that they put activated carbon pleats and install those during wildfire smoke events. So Patrick talked about, you can supplement with carbon to reduce the odors from the smoke. They also have induct UVC light that keeps the system clean. And you can see again here, this teal light blue line is the outside, and you can see the bottom green yellow line is inside. And so quite an improvement for this commercial building. And this is a public space. So again, this could be a building that could be communicating as a clean air space and inviting people that maybe don't have a great environment in their homes to seek some relief. So we've talked about the clean air plan, and I'm going to get a little bit more into this, not just around just the filtration, but other things that we can do to make sure that our systems are working as effectively as possible. And so we're going to get into some of the assessment, then how do we action our clean air plan, and then what we do after a wildfire event to review the plan and to improve it going forward. And so here's a myriad of different filtration options that you can look at. And so it's really important to look at how you're going to upgrade that filtration. So again, if you can upgrade to MERV 13 or higher to remove those particulates of concern, PM 2.5, supplement with activated carbon filtration to remove odors and smoke. If you have multiple stages, like Patrick said, then you can have both. You can have the particulate filtration and the activated carbon, and you can also have even higher efficiency filters like the commercial building had. And the more surface area, the better. And again, we can supplement with room air purifiers. I'll quickly touch on this, but again, with wildfires, we're looking at that particulate, PM 2.5 of concern, and the odors and gaseous contaminants. And again, it's that PM 2.5 that can penetrate deep into your lungs, causing a range of health issues, and especially troubling for those with lung conditions. And again, that smoke, it can just be a nuisance and aggravating, and people think that, when they can smell that, they just don't feel well. Why MERV 13? This is an ASHRAE table of the ASHRAE 52 standard, and I've highlighted here MERV 13. You can see it's effective up to 50% on the 0.3 to 1 micron size particles, and it's effective 85% on 1 to 3 micron size particles, which are the sizes of concern in PM 2.5. And if we think about our commercial building that we talked about, they went to MERV 15. Now you move from 85% on 0.3 to 1 micron size particles and 90% on E2, which are the 1 to 3 micron size particles. I talked about single stage and multiple stage. So single stage, that's usually the most common you're going to get in a home. And in this picture, I think there's a 2-inch filter in there, but most home furnaces have a 1-inch filter. Again, if you can get a bigger size, you're going to have a lot more opportunity to upgrade the efficiency of your filtration, as well as get more surface area that's able to, that your fans don't have to work as hard because there's less resistance to pressure drop. Or to airflow, and it can stop more particulate. So again, in our home, we had a 1-inch filter in our previous furnace. We upgraded our furnace, and we asked the mechanical contractor to put as much depth as they could. So that's something that you can go look at. You can go look at your furnace and see if there might be some room, and have someone come in and see if they can do that with your existing furnace. Or when it's time to upgrade your furnace, you can look at that opportunity. And then multiple stages, you're going to see commercial buildings have the opportunity to have multiple stages. And these are conversations to be having at the design or when you might be upgrading your systems. And so you can see here that they have the opportunity for a pre-filter for the fresh air coming in. They have another opportunity for another air filter as the recirculated air is coming in. And then they can upgrade here to a MERV 13 or even 16 filter, and then there's tons of room to put activated carbon or gas phase filtration for that. So again, if your systems can be flexible, they can be flexible not only for wildfire events, but any sort of extraordinary air quality event. Room air purifiers. There is a host of room air purifiers out there everywhere, as simple as the Corsi Rosenthal box, which is a great option. If you can't achieve MERV 13 with your HVAC system, then this is a great opportunity to augment it. Some things to think about, though, if you can go to more of a more commercial room air purifier, ideal to have multiple stages. A lot of room air purifiers out there have HEPA filters, and those can be 97% effective on 0.3 microns, where MERV 13 is just 50% effective. Make sure you really research your room air purifiers. I know when I was looking for ours, sometimes the cost of the replacement filter was more than the cost of the initial unit. And even good thing to buy a secondary set of filters when you're buying your room air purifiers, so you have them at the ready when they need to be changed. You also need to make sure you have the right size. And so the Harvard School of Public Health has a portable air cleaner sizing tool. It's important that your room air cleaner has been tested and verified with a clean air delivery rate, and you can put in the parameters of your room and your air changes, and it can tell you the type of room air or the size of room air purifier and clean air delivery rate that you need. And then keep your room air purifier close to those who are the most sensitive. So if you have someone who has compromised lung condition, that they're sleeping with that in their room, or it's great to put beside someone while they're working all day. And then evaluate your filtration system. You don't want to have this event happen and you're introducing wildfire smoke and your system's already dirty. So make sure that you're cleaning your ductwork, your coils, you're calibrating your gauges, you're calibrating your monitors, and you're reviewing your preventive maintenance program. So everything is running well and smoothly before you even get a wildfire event. You also want to inspect for bypass around your filter bank and your air filters. 1 inch of bypass around a filter can pretty much negate your upgrade to your MERV 13. There are studies that show on a MERV 14 system, if you have 1 inch of bypass, that can drop your MERV efficiencies down up to 6 points. And you want to look at all the other pieces that are part of your HVAC system, making sure they're clean and running effectively. It's also great to have a home IAQ monitor. Seeing is believing, and you can really see how we saw the improvement. And it actually helped us identify where there were issues happening in our home. You want to prevent smoke infiltration. Pat talked a lot about this, so keeping windows and doors closed, sealing any leaks, especially in a commercial building, creating and maintaining that positive pressurization will not allow infiltration to happen, even if a window or a door is opened. And if you can, increase that percentage of recirculated air during wildfire activity while still maintaining your positive pressurization, and use central air conditioning. Those air conditioners that you put just, on your window, those typically don't have any filtration in them. And so it's best, if it's not too hot, that you take those out and just close the windows and just use your central air conditioning. So your action plan, set your clean air threshold, decide when you're going to put your clean air plan in place, and monitor AQHI, IAQ monitors, as well as what Jamie talked about, firesmoke.ca. That's one of our go-tos every morning now that we're looking at. When you hit that threshold, install your wildfire filters. A big thing is make sure that you have filters on hand now. During the pandemic, there was a host of MERV 13 filters in your regular home hardware store. Those are not as readily available anymore. So reach out to your air filtration distributors. They will have many more options for you and many different sizes that they can support you with. And make sure that those are stored, especially if they're activated carbon. You want to make sure they're stored and sealed, and they're easy to get at when you have these situations. You're also going to have to increase your frequency of inspections. There's more particulate outside, so it's going to load faster, and your higher efficiency filters are going to load faster because they're stopping more, they're more effective. So check often and make sure that you haven't gotten bypass along the way. And use monitoring technologies if you can. There again is a wide range that can fit into your budget of different monitors that you can access. And I think the other thing that's really important is communicate your clean air plan. If you're a commercial building or a municipal building, communicate to your stakeholders what you've done so people know that you've got a clean air space that they can go to. Or in our case at home, communicate to your family what to do. Okay, guys, if there's smoke outside, first thing, close all the windows and let's get the room air purifiers working. So just really making sure that you're communicating that. And if you have monitors, you can really show, like we say, sometimes the air quality looks great, but it could still be providing harm for you. And after you're done after a wildfire events happen, it's important to make sure you replace those wildfire filters and go back to your normal operating filters. If you believe it's been a little bit taxing on your system, dispose of those spent filters, assess your systems again. And now is the time to kind of think about, is there some things we could do maybe in our future capital budget to increase the quality of our HVAC systems, get more stages, allow for more surface area of filtration, and determine those actions forward. And again, advocate and communicate your commitment to clean, healthy indoor air environments. Here's just a few links to some of our favorite resources that were already touched on today. And I also have listed the National Air Filtration Association. If you're doing some of this progressive work, you can get nominated for a Clean Air Award. There's also, Patrick talked about certified facility professionals. Your technicians can get certified through NAFA, and you can also reach out to certified air filter specialists through there. And you can contact me at LinkedIn. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Best way to reach to me is through this link. Back to you, Julie.
Awesome. Thank you for that presentation, Roberta. I saw the Q&A just light up there. So looking forward to our discussion. Thank you, Pat, for coming back on for our Q&A session. And Opal, if you'd like to join us as well, you may. As we head into the Q&A, I just wanted to mention to everyone on the call that if you're enjoying this webinar or know someone who would like to engage in the work of Alberta Capital Airshed, there are lots of great ways to stay informed. One is by signing up for our monthly newsletter, or even just looking at the past webinar recordings that are available on our website at capitalairshed.ca. We do have some other webinars that also focused on wildfire smoke. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, X, and LinkedIn. If you have an idea for a future webinar topic, Selena Fairbank, the engagement coordinator for Alberta Capital Airshed, has done a fantastic job bringing this one together with our very knowledgeable guests. And you're welcome to get in touch with her with your ideas for a future webinar. So with that, heading to our Q&A here. I was seeing some questions around the MERV 13 filtration coming from outdoor air into our buildings, and some questions around the pressurization, as well as how much of that outdoor air that's coming in is going to be okay versus putting into the recirc. So I think I'll head first to Roberta, but then invite maybe Pat or Opal to add to that. If you could just provide a bit more clarity on that point. Go ahead, Roberta.
Sure. I mean, you always need to bring out, if we're talking especially about commercial buildings, you always need to bring outdoor air into a building to create that positive pressurization. So if you think about when you're leaving a commercial building and you open the door and it kind of opens for you, it's creating that positive pressurization that even if you open that door, it's not actually allowing infiltration to happen. So as much as we'd like to just seal everything off and shut things down and just hope for the best, you still have to have that outdoor air coming in, and it has to be bringing in, it has to be reducing the CO2 levels that you're creating inside your space. So, talking with your building operators of saying, how much can we improve or increase recirculation, because that's already been filtered once through MERV 13 and it's going to go through it again, but making sure you're still maintaining that balance. So that's a lot of the work that should be being done ahead of time to make sure that you're maintaining that healthy balance. And as well, MERV 13 is going to be more resistant to airflow. So you do have to make sure that you're bringing more air in so that it can do its job. So I'll pass it to Patrick to add anything else that he wants to add to the conversation.
Well, the only thing I'd add is that you have to recognize that there's also sources of pollutants that come from indoors. So even on a nice day when there's no wildfires, you're still making pollutants inside the building. And so the way you ventilate, whether it's a commercial building or your home, is to bring in outdoor air from the outside and flush the pollutants out. Now the problem that we're all dealing with is that during the wildfires, there's terrible air outside. And so how do you ventilate a house while keeping the pollutants outside? And then also the recognition that when you bring in air from the outside, it's going through a filter, which is stopping the particulates. But gases that might be coming in from the outside aren't being stopped by the filter, so those are coming in as well. So it's all a balancing act when it comes to there's just a lot of things to be cognizant of when you're taking care of your indoor air pollution. The interesting thing is that when you have a furnace inside of your house, is to recognize that the air inside your home kind of runs on a loop, goes in the floor and it comes back out the wall and it goes around through a filter. You're not really pulling in a lot of air outside with your furnace, while a commercial building ventilates specifically by pulling in outside air, and then so there's those concerns about pollutants outside. So there's just multiple things to keep in mind when you're
yeah, it's sorry, go ahead, Pat.
That's it.
Yeah, I was just reminded of this idea that Roberta talked about, bringing in an expert, right, who can help you navigate some of these considerations. Another thing that came up, Pat, during your presentation was the fact that some of these indoor air cleaners can sometimes produce ozone, which of course is not something we want to see in our indoor air. Would you have any advice on how somebody might go about investigating whether or not that model that they're considering produces ozone, to maybe avoid that one? What are some key things a person might look for? And of course, I would open it up to Roberta and Jamie afterwards for any additional tidbits of advice you'd like to offer.
What I'd say is that that's why at Health Canada, we tend to recommend things that we have evidence behind, that we have things we can say about. We don't speculate a lot. So we tend to focus on HEPA filters, carbon filters in your portable air cleaners. It's a filter that stops particles. A lot of the portable air filtration equipment, or even the commercially available equipment that can produce these secondary pollutants, have usually electronic based, and they're producing ions, or they're producing dry peroxides, or there's other kinds of technologies that are used to either disinfect or to make the particles more sticky, so they'll stick to the air, they'll stick to the filter. When you have those types of filtration equipment with those those electronic components, those are where you potentially can produce ozone and secondary reaction products. There's an organization called the Association of Home Appliances, AHAM. So it's aham.org. And AHAM provides there's a list of portable air cleaners that have been tested for ozone production. So if you have a particular model, you can go and you can check their database to see if your particular model is in their database, and then see if it's been tested for ozone production. So that's about what I know.
Thanks for those tips. Roberta or Jamie, anything you'd like to add on the ozone piece?
Yeah, I just completely agree with Patrick. I think especially during COVID, there was a number of new technologies that came on the market. Some have been tried and tested, and some haven't. And so some room air purifiers had way more than just the filtration. It had other technologies in it. And like Patrick said, if you see that with additional technologies, research further on that product, see what standards they have tested the efficacy and the safety of the product. And like Patrick said, go to the AHAM website and see that they're listed on the website, because the ones that have done their work and know that they don't emit ozone have gotten those tested and are on that website.
Yeah, so I'll just echo Roberta and Patrick's advice. Research is the most important thing you can do. AHAM is a great resource. Alberta Lung has used it for some of our testing as well. The biggest thing is, do your research, have a list of preferred, or, maybe have a list of ones that you're looking at that you think might be a good option, and run it through their database, and then pick the ones that it shows doesn't have an ozone concern. With COVID, like Roberta mentioned, a lot of new technologies came onto the market that maybe not necessarily people are aware of, but they're great options. And AHAM also has a list of those as well.
Awesome. Thank you for that. On a bit of a lighter note, Jamie, in your presentation, you talked about pets a bit and what we do with these poor pets during wildfire smoke days. I've got a dog, and I've got some portable air filters in my home as well, and one of them will light up different colors if there's a particularly large amount of fine particulate in the house. And I noticed that, if the dog goes and like shakes about right around it, sometimes it sort of lights up. So, we do have to take our pets outside for a quick walk to, get them some exercise and allow them to do their thing. But giving my dog a bath after every single walk isn't really practical. Are there any quick tips that you have for people who are out bringing their dogs back in after a brief morning walk?
Yeah, for sure. That's actually a really good point. Interestingly, the reason why your filter will change when your dog is shaking his fur coat around there is because he usually has bits of dust or things like that on his fur that the purifier is reacting to. It's not realistic to, give them a bath every time, but you can just brush their fur outside, wipe their paws before they come inside. If it's really poor air quality, we usually say if it's 7 and above, maybe brush your dog very lightly. My family dog is a Shih Tzu, so quite flat-faced. So when we bring him inside after he does his business or whatever, we give him a quick brush through and we wipe his paws. And then we just monitor him for any signs of difficulty breathing, if he's coughing or if he's wheezing. Then we just maybe wipe his nose a bit and wipe his eyes.
Well, thanks for that.
And I would add to that is we have a pretty fluffy dog, and it's really important that we're changing the pre-filter on our room air purifiers, because it's stopping that particulate that you can see. So making sure that you're cleaning those out often, so that it can make sure that your room air purifiers are working as best as they can.
Okay, good tip there around the pre-filter. Going to check that. I might do that right after this webinar is done. Two more questions that I am hoping we can get to before the end of this webinar. One is around the monitors for indoor air quality. A number of folks on the Q&A are asking for some guidance there. I know I use one in our house through Air Things, but I know there's a whole bunch of different ones out there. Any quick tips on those? We'll sort of go through maybe Pat and Opal, then Roberta, and then on to Jamie.
You know, I wish I could provide you more advice about that, but I really don't know about what the best monitors to provide at home. My understanding is a lot of the internal components in these testing equipment are kind of the same thing. The way you count particles, the laser that you use to see particles, or the way that VOCs are measured. My understanding is a lot of the technology is the same inside the box. But as far as a particular monitor, no, I don't really have any particular recommendations.
Yeah, thanks for that. Roberta, even, things that you'd look for if you were looking for one. Yeah.
Yeah, one that we found quite inexpensive is called Aranet. I think it's available on Amazon. I think the important thing is you have something that's measuring PM2.5, PM10, your VOCs, your CO2. You could even have temperature, humidity. I'm probably missing one other on there. If it has the ability for the AQHI. I would say as you're getting into more of a commercial setting, so that Aranet I think is $200. And we even carry it. We usually set it on our tray when we get on a plane to see if the systems are working as we're loading onto the plane, and it's quite a topic of conversation. But I would say there's also some commercially ready or available room air purifiers that we provide and other air distributors provide that can be a little bit more technical. I think it's really important to understand when they need to be calibrated, how you troubleshoot them, because if you're not doing that, you could get false negatives or false positives and can send you down a whole path that you don't need to go down.
Yeah, thanks for that. Jamie, anything you'd add?
Yeah, for sure. So I will echo Roberta's message, excuse me, about having a comprehensive monitor. So you want to make sure it has PM2.5, ozone, etc. And you want to make sure that it is easy to use, easy to understand, easy to troubleshoot. There is a site that we use called Leaf Score where you can go through different types of monitors and see if it meets your checklist. Your checklist should include that comprehensive testing, easy to troubleshoot, easy to understand, and data that's easily accessible. So you don't want it giving you a bunch of data that you can't necessarily translate into real action. So ones that we've used are Purple Air, we've used IQ Air, as well as Air Things. Those three seem to be the most popular in Canada because they are comprehensive, they offer different options, and they meet the Leaf Score guidelines, which is that it has a comprehensive testing. Does it have easy to understand messaging? Is it easy to troubleshoot? And is it accessible? So some of these monitors might be Wi-Fi only, or they need to connect to your phone, and those might not necessarily be accessible to everybody. So we find following that guideline really helps find a monitor that meets an individual's particular needs.
Great, thanks for that. So last question. I know we're going a little bit over, but there's a really unique question here that I think will be of interest. So we have a question from Vivian saying, I'm an operations supervisor for indoor swimming pools. We can't increase recirculation or we get chloramines building up. Any other ideas on how to help with air quality during wildfire smoke events? So I'll just open the floor. You guys can, whoever's first to speak gets to go first. Go ahead.
Well, I think I could jump in just saying if they have exhausted as much or they've exhausted their recirculation, again, pools need to have that outdoor ventilation, just like Patrick talked about. They have a lot of things that are happening inside the space that you need to make sure that that is you're bringing outdoor air, you're ventilating that. So really start looking at upgrading your filtration. So if you can go to a higher filtration efficiency, you'll have that outdoor ventilation and you'll have those higher efficiency filters that are filtering out the smoke. If you've got a second stage, you can put the activated carbon in place. And then if you've got some really, you could use a room or an indoor air quality monitor to see where maybe your hot spots might be in the building, and you could augment with room air purifiers. That would be my suggestion. Patrick, anything
Couldn't
else?
have said it any better. That's great. That's great.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that, everyone, for your great presentations, your ability to just jump in there with any question that came at you. I'll just offer one other opportunity for any other key message that you'd like to leave folks with today. So go ahead, Jamie. Is there anything left unsaid that you'd like to make sure people know about?
No, I just like to reiterate, we're very well aware that we're going to be having more smoke hours, more air quality events, and the best prevention is having a plan in place. So use those tools, have a plan in place, and that is the best way to keep everyone safe, including yourself.
Great. Pat and Opal, anything you'd add?
Well, I can't say anything specifically about the talk. I'd just like to say I work for Health Canada, and there's a lot of people working behind the scenes right now on the fact that we've got wildfires in Canada. So government can be a little bit slow sometimes when it comes to guidance being developed or web pages being updated and work like that. But I want to let anybody who know who's watching or is going to watch this webinar that yeah, a lot of work is being done in Health Canada right now about wildfires. So.
Great. That's reassuring to hear. Thank you. And thank you as well, Opal, for joining us as well. Anything you'd add? You're good? Awesome. All right. Roberta, last word to you.
Just really thank you for the opportunity to chat today. It was great to meet these fine folks that I got to speak with today. Be well, everybody. You want to take care of yourselves during this time. And I do know that there are evacuation orders in place right now. So our hearts go out to those who might be being displaced, and we hope that they're safe and that our wildfire fighters, forest fires, and all the first response staff, hoping that they're safe, and congratulations to all the communities that have set up clean air centers, so those who are evacuating or need a safe place to get some relief are available there. And again, free anytime to help with any questions that someone may have in this matter. So thank you again.
Awesome. So thank you to our panelists, to everybody who registered to be here today, participated in the Q&A and in the chat, to Selena Fairbank for organizing this webinar, and to Russ Miyagawa for his technical support behind the scenes. And we'd also like to share our appreciation to Kevin Ma and the St. Albert Gazette for doing an article on this webinar to help raise awareness of the opportunity to just learn a little bit more about how to navigate these times we're in with frequent wildfire event days. So with that, have a great day, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.